Welcome back to Wrestling Pro News, the only place where you get the full story with all the intensity, all the drama, and all the behind-the-scenes fallout that the rest of the wrestling world only whispers about. And today we are going deeper than ever into the chaos that erupted at Clash in Paris and the nuclear fallout that has followed in the days since, because what happened to Roman Reigns on August 31st, 2025, was not just a beatdown, it was not just another scripted attack to send the fans home buzzing. It was a seismic event that has shaken WWE to its very core, and the aftershocks are still being felt across every brand, every locker room, and every social media feed on the planet. Roman Reigns, the tribal chief, the man who carried WWE through its greatest highs and darkest lows, stepped into Paris with one mission: to settle a score with Bronson Reed, a man who had disrespected his very identity by mocking his legacy, stealing his sneakers, and proclaiming himself the tribal thief. And for 22 minutes inside that ring, Reigns and Reed delivered a heavyweight slugfest that had the crowd of over 30,000 on their feet chanting OTC, throwing up the ones, and reminding the world why Roman Reigns is still the face of this business. Reigns absorbed Reed's size, his 330-pound frame, his Samoan drops, and his jagged edges. But when it mattered most, the tribal chief dug deep, countered a sit-out powerbomb, and drove his shoulder through Reed's body with a spear that sent shockwaves through the arena, securing the win and reclaiming his respect. But no one could have predicted what would happen next, because just as Reigns climbed onto the announce table, celebrating his hard-fought victory and choking out Paul Heyman with a guillotine for his betrayal at WrestleMania 41, Braun Breaker struck like a missile, spearing Reigns off the table and sending him crashing into the wreckage below. The Paris crowd gasped, the energy shifted, and what followed was nothing short of carnage as Breaker unleashed another spear on the ramp. Reed rejoined the assault, and together they delivered a series of tsunamis that crushed Reigns' ribs and left him broken on the canvas. Medics rushed in, strapping the tribal chief to a stretcher. But Breaker and Reed weren't finished. They added insult to injury with even more destruction until Jey Uso sprinted down to try and save his cousin, only to be annihilated by Breaker's power and Reed's brutality, leaving the bloodline in shambles. Adam Pearce stormed out, banning Breaker and Reed from the arena, threatening suspension, but the statement had been made, the damage was done, and WWE confirmed the worst on Raw the very next night: multiple fractured ribs. Roman Reigns ruled out indefinitely, his body battered and his immediate future in doubt, but his legacy untouched. Fans thought this might be the end of the story, but then September 2nd came, and Reigns broke his silence on X with just 16 words that flipped the entire narrative on its head: "I'm healing. And when I do, Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed will pay the price of that twice. #acknowledge me." Those words, simple but chilling, went viral instantly, racking up over 100,000 likes and sparking debates across Reddit, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube about what exactly the tribal chief meant. To some, it was a medical update, but to those who know Roman, to those who have followed his career since his Shield debut in 2012, this was not an update, this was a threat, this was a promise. This was the calm before the storm, and it echoed back to his days of dominance where he crushed every challenger during his record-setting Universal Championship reign. Fans dissected every word, focusing on his phrase, "pay the price twice," a direct nod to his history of making enemies regret their actions not once, but over and over until they were erased from relevance. And with that single post, Roman Reigns reminded the world that the head of the table is never truly down, even when stretchered out, even when his ribs are fractured, even when his enemies stand tall. What makes this even more explosive is the faction war brewing behind the scenes. Breaker and Reed may have been the ones to inflict the damage, but they are merely the muscle of Seth Rollins' faction, the Vision, a dangerous group that has controlled WWE since WrestleMania 41 with Rollins as the puppet master, Becky Lynch as the enforcer of interference, Paul Heyman as the strategist, and Breaker and Reed as the ruthless power. Roman's vows strategically ignore Rollins, focusing instead on Breaker and Reed, which suggests he is plotting revenge step by step, tearing down the enforcers before going for the mastermind. But history tells us Rollins and Reigns are destined to collide again, and whether that comes at Survivor Series, the Royal Rumble, or even WrestleMania 42, the groundwork is being laid in blood and betrayal. Add to this the looming question of the Bloodline's future. With Jey Uso already battered, Sami Zayn waiting in the wings, and Jacob Fatu potentially returning to back up his cousin, the ingredients are there for a faction war that could explode into a War Games match, a dream scenario fans online are already pushing hard for. Imagine it, Reigns, Jey, Sami, and Fatu against Rollins, Breakker, Reed, and maybe even Becky Lynch in the most brutal cage match of them all. And let's not forget, this entire storyline also aligns with Reigns' Hollywood commitments as he films Street Fighter in Australia with Cody Rhodes, a perfectly timed injury angle that keeps him off television while elevating Breakker and Reed into legitimate stars. But make no mistake, when Reigns returns, the destruction will be biblical. Fans are already calling for a no-holds-barred match, a handicap destruction, or even a bloodline reunion to crush the Vision once and for all. Others are speculating that this is just the opening chapter to an eventual WrestleMania clash between Roman and Seth Rollins that will close a decade-long story that began with a Shield and has been haunted by betrayal ever since. One thing is guaranteed. This is not the end. This is only the beginning, and when the Tribal Chief heals, the entire landscape of WWE will change. So, wrestling family, drop your predictions in the comments below. Tell us if you think Roman will strike first at WrestlePalooza, if the war will escalate at Survivor Series, or if we're heading toward a WrestleMania collision that will define an era. Smash that like button, subscribe, and ring the notification bell so you don't miss a single second, because this isn't just a comeback story. This is Roman Reigns declaring war on the future of WWE, and when he returns, Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed will not just pay once, they will pay twice, and the world will acknowledge the Tribal Chief all over again. Welcome back to Wrestling Pro News, the ultimate home for everything explosive in the wrestling world. And today we're diving headfirst into the chaos that has left the entire WWE universe in shock and disbelief. Roman Reigns, the Tribal Chief, the head of the table, suffered one of the most brutal and devastating injuries of his career at Clash in Paris on August 31st, 2025, when Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed unleashed a savage 2-on-1 assault that left the arena stunned and the fans speechless. Reigns had just gone through a grueling 22-minute war against Reed, a fight fueled by weeks of mockery, personal jabs, and stolen symbolism as Reed paraded around with the Tribal Chief sneakers calling him soul.